They say the truth has a way of finding you when you least expect it. For me, it found me on a rain-soaked Friday evening, standing in an abandoned warehouse where hope went to die, except mine refused to. My name is Ava Chen, and this is the story of how invisibility became my superpower, until the most dangerous man in the city decided I was worth seeing. But let me start where it gets interesting. Picture this: Daniel Moretti, the man who makes grown criminals check over their shoulders, kneeling on a filthy concrete floor, watching a paralyzed 9-year-old girl take 3 trembling steps in homemade braces. His face, carved from marble and violence, cracking open with something that looks suspiciously like tears. That's where my story peaks. But to understand how we got there, you need to know where I started. And trust me, it wasn't pretty. The beginning, when dreams die in silence 3 years ago, I learned that family can be the sharpest knife in your back. It was supposed to be my moment. Graduation day at Columbia University, summa cum laude, full scholarship, the whole Golden Daughter package. I'd bought a cheap dress that looked expensive under the right light, practiced my speech in the mirror until my roommate begged me to stop, and sent my parents the invitation with a handwritten note that said, "I hope you're proud of me." They didn't come. Not because of traffic or illness or some unavoidable emergency. They just didn't think it mattered. My mother called that morning while I was pinning my cap, her voice flat with disinterest. "Ava, your father and I talked. This graduation thing, it's just a formality, isn't it? You already have the degree. We don't see why we need to sit through hours of speeches for other people's children." Other people's children. As if I wasn't theirs. As if 22 years of blood relation could be erased because I'd chosen education over the family restaurant business, knowledge over kitchen grease, independence over their suffocating expectations. "It's important to me," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "I'm the first in our family to graduate college." You thought we'd celebrate you abandoning us?" My father's voice cut in, sharp enough to draw blood through the phone line. "You think you're better than us now with your fancy degree? Let me tell you something, Ava. That piece of paper won't keep you warm at night. Won't fill your stomach when reality hits and you realize the world doesn't care about smart girls who think they're special." The line went dead. I stood there in my dorm room, cap crooked, makeup running, and something inside me that had been barely hanging on just broke. I graduated alone. Sat in the audience surrounded by families cheering for their daughters, their sisters, their bright futures. When they called my name, I walked across that stage to polite applause from strangers, accepted my diploma from a dean who'd never remember my face, and smiled for a photo no one would ever frame. That night, I made a decision. If my family thought I was a failure, I'd prove them catastrophically wrong. Not for them, they'd lost that privilege. For me. For every girl who'd been called too ambitious, too educated, too much. But first, I had to survive. And survival, I'd learn, required becoming invisible. Chapter 1: The Art of Disappearing. The Moretti estate wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as old money, all marble columns and manicured gardens that whispered, "You don't belong here," with every step. I'd been working as a maid for 6 months, and I'd perfected 3 crucial skills: polish silver until you can see your regrets in it, scrub floors until your knees forget what standing feels like, and never, ever make eye contact with the man who owns it all. Daniel Moretti. Even his name tasted dangerous. The other staff whispered about him in the kitchen during our 10-minute breaks. How he'd built his empire on strategic ruthlessness and carefully calculated violence. How he never raised his voice but could end careers, or lives, with 3 quiet words. How he'd lost his younger sister to illness years ago and hadn't been the same since, like grief had hollowed him out and filled the space with ice. I didn't care about the legend. I cared about the paycheck that kept my baby sister Lily fed, housed, and in the experimental physical therapy program that doctors said was our only hope. Lily. My heart, my responsibility, my reason for everything. The fire that killed our parents hadn't just taken them. It had stolen Lily's ability to walk, crushed her spine under a collapsing beam while I dragged her from the flames with hands that still bore the scars. She was 6 then. 9 now. 3 years of watching her world shrink to the size of a wheelchair, of doctors shaking their heads with that practiced sympathy that means give up, of social workers suggesting I consider more suitable care arrangements because I was 22 and single and not equipped. I became equipped. I became everything. Mother, sister, caretaker, provider, advocate, warrior. I worked 3 jobs before landing at the Moretti estate, slept 4 hours a night, and learned to function on coffee and pure stubborn refusal to let life beat me. But every Friday at 4:47 p.m. I became reckless. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, would purse her lips when I'd appear at her office door, already pulling off my apron. Family matter, I'd murmur, the same vague phrase every week. She'd sigh and wave me away, marking it in her ledger with visible disapproval. I was the only staff member who left early, who disrupted the carefully orchestrated schedule, who dared to prioritize anything over the Moretti household's needs. I didn't care. Fridays were Lily's, and I'd burn every bridge necessary to keep that promise. What I didn't know was that Daniel Moretti had started noticing. That 3 weeks ago, he'd stationed himself in his study doorway at precisely 4:45 p.m., dark eyes tracking my hurried movements as I fumbled with my coat. That he'd begun cataloging my patterns the way predators study prey, not to attack, but to understand. Mafia bosses don't ignore anomalies. They investigate them. And I'd just become his most interesting mystery. Chapter 2, The Secret Beneath Mercy Street. The warehouse squatted at the intersection of Mercy Street and Broken Dreams, a monument to urban decay that everyone pretended didn't exist. Shattered windows gaped like missing teeth. Rust bloomed across metal siding like a disease. Weeds pushed through concrete cracks with the determination of things that refused to die. I loved it. Not for what it was, but for what it gave us, invisibility. Inside, I'd carved out a sanctuary from salvaged materials and desperate hope. Parallel bars welded from scrap metal by a sympathetic construction worker who'd lost his own daughter. Foam mats bought from a gym's bankruptcy sale. Medical supplies purchased in cash from a pharmacy that didn't ask questions. And the braces, God, those braces. Cheap metal and leather straps that I'd adjusted and readjusted until my fingers bled, following YouTube tutorials from physical therapists who'd never know they saved a life. Ava. Lily's voice echoed through the cavernous space, bright as a bell. I've been practicing my grip. Look, 20 seconds now. My heart clenched. 20 seconds. Such a small eternity. I dropped my grocery bag and knelt beside her wheelchair, eye level with my baby sister who had freckles like constellations and eyes aged by pain into something ancient and beautiful. That's my warrior girl. Ready to try the bars? Her face lit up with the kind of hope that could power cities. I brought snacks for after. The protein bars you pretend to hate but always finish. I don't pretend, she said indignantly. They're genuinely gross. But muscles need protein. She said it so seriously, parroting Dr. Kim from the therapy center, that I had to bite back a smile. The process was familiar now, almost sacred. I lifted her from the chair, all bird bones and fierce determination, and carried her to the parallel bars. Her legs dangled uselessly, but her arms wrapped around my neck with trust that humbled me daily. Ready? I asked, positioning her carefully. Always. I strapped the braces on with practiced efficiency, metal cold against her skin. She never complained. Never. Not when the straps left red marks. Not when her muscles screamed from effort. Not when her friends from before the fire posted pictures of dance recitals and soccer games while she practiced standing for 30 seconds. Remember, I coached, hands hovering near her waist. Small movements. Let the braces support you. Feel the motion, don't force it. I know, Ava. I've got this. She gripped the bars, knuckles white, and lifted her right foot. Half an inch. A universe of distance. Then she shifted forward, weight transferring through metal and hope in equal measure. I'm doing it. Her voice cracked with wonder. It's working. Ava, look, outside, pressed against a grimy window I'd forgotten to board up, Daniel Moretti stood frozen. He'd followed me through Brooklyn's winding streets, past gentrified brownstones into forgotten neighborhoods, expecting, what? Drug deals? Secret lovers? Some explanation for the maid who disrupted his household's perfect order? Not this. Never this. Through the cracked glass, he watched me cradle my sister like she was made of starlight and steel. Watched her trembling, impossible progress. Watched the kind of love that builds miracles from scrap metal and refuses to accept defeat. And something in his chest, something he'd thought long dead, cracked open. Chapter 3, When Monsters Learn to O'Neill. Inside the warehouse, Lily was flying. 3 steps became 4. 4 became 5. Each one a small miracle that doctors said shouldn't happen, that physics said was impossible, that we did anyway because desperation makes mathematicians out of believers. Again, she demanded, breathless and glowing. I can feel my leg muscles, Ava. I swear I can feel them working. That's because they are working, baby. You're waking them up, showing them they're still here, still strong, the door groaned. Not the side entrance I used, but the main doors I'd blocked with a rusted dumpster specifically to keep people out. My blood turned to ice. Lily's eyes went wide, her grip tightening on the bars until her fingers went bloodless. Ava? It's okay, I lied, moving between her and the door, weaponless and terrified. Probably just wind. But wind doesn't move dumpsters. Wind doesn't create shadows that tall, that broad, that precisely shaped like a man in a suit that costs more than I'd earn in 6 months. Daniel Moretti stepped from darkness into light, and time stuttered. His face was unreadable, that carefully blank expression powerful men wear like armor. But his eyes, something moved in those dark depths. Something that looked like recognition, like pain, like grief meeting hope head-on and not knowing which to claim. Mr. Moretti. My voice came out strangled, my mind racing through consequences. Fired. Reported. Lily taken away by social services. Everything I'd built crumbling. I can explain, you should have told me. His voice was quiet. Devastatingly quiet. Told you what? Defensive, desperate, dangerous. That you were fighting the impossible. He moved closer, and I saw it then, the crack in his armor. Not anger, but something rawer. How long have you been doing this? The question disarmed me. 8 months. Since I started working for you. And before that? Before that. I glanced at Lily, who nodded permission. Before that, I worked 3 other jobs trying to afford doctors who all said the same thing, nothing could be done. That I should accept it, move on, stop wasting money on false hope. My voice cracked. As if my sister is something to just accept. As if she's not worth fighting for. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked past me to Lily, still gripping the parallel bars, small and trembling and so achingly brave. When his gaze returned to mine, something had shifted. Tell me what happened to her. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't a threat either. It was something harder to resist, genuine interest. So I told him. About the fire 3 years ago. About our father who'd worked collections for local loan sharks, who'd made the fatal mistake of skimming off the top, thinking no one would notice. About the men who came in the night, who made it look like an accident while my parents burned and I dragged Lily through flames that stole her ability to walk but not her will to try. The men who did this, Daniel said, his voice gone hard and cold. Their names. I was 19 and terrified. I didn't, names, Ava. Something in his tone made my spine lock. This wasn't curiosity. This was something darker, more personal. Carlyle. Anthony Carlyle was the loan shark. And there was another name, Vitaly. My father mentioned him once, said he was the real power. Daniel's entire body went rigid. The temperature in the warehouse seemed to drop 10 degrees, and his hands, loose at his sides, curled into fists. Luca Vitali, he said, and it wasn't a question. Yes. Why? Because Luca Vitali has been trying to kill me for 5 years. His voice was ice and fury. Because Anthony Carlyle is his enforcer. And 3 years ago, they were expanding territory, burning down anyone who got in their way. He looked at me, and the fury in his eyes stole my breath. You've been working in my house for 8 months, and you never thought to mention this? Mention what? I snapped back. That some mob war destroyed my family? That I barely scraped together enough money for one decent interview outfit and prayed you wouldn't run a deep background check? That I've been terrified every single day someone would recognize my last name and finish what they started? You should have told me. Why? The word burst out raw and jagged. So you could fire me? Turn me over? Use us as leverage? I'm not stupid, Mr. Moretti. I know what you are. I know what men like you do to people like us. I protect what's mine. The words hung between us, loaded with meanings I didn't dare examine. We're not yours, I said quietly. We're nobody. Just collateral damage you happen to notice. Behind me, Lily's voice rang out, small but fierce, we're not nobody. Ava saved me. She saves me every day. Daniel's expression cracked, just for a moment, vulnerability bleeding through before he locked it down. He looked at Lily like she was a ghost, like she reminded him of something precious he'd lost and could never reclaim. I had a sister once, he said softly. Younger than me. She got sick, and I was too busy building my empire to save her. Too consumed with territory and revenge to notice she was dying until it was too late. He stopped, jaw working. Every time I see you, he gestured at Lily, then at me, every time I see what you're fighting for, what you're willing to sacrifice, it reminds me that power means nothing if you lose the people who matter. What are you saying? I whispered. His eyes locked on mine, dark and determined and terrifying in their intensity. I'm saying you should have told me. Because I could have helped. Because Vitali and Carlyle are my enemies too. He paused. And because I don't let what's mine suffer alone. We're not, you are now. Chapter 4, When Hope Costs More Than Money. The appointment with Dr. Reeves changed everything. Lily was a candidate for experimental surgery, risky, complex, but possible. The custom braces Daniel ordered from Milan were already being fitted. Physical therapy 3 times a week with the city's best specialists. For the first time in 3 years, the word hope didn't taste like a lie. I should have known better. Hope is expensive. And someone always makes you pay. It was Friday evening, 6 days after Daniel's promise of protection, when I returned to the warehouse one last time. I'd told him I was done with the place, but I needed to retrieve things, Lily's medical records, my notebook tracking every exercise, the photo of our parents I'd hidden behind the parallel bars. The dumpster I'd used to block the entrance was moved. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered. No, no, no. Inside was destruction incarnate. The parallel bars, crumpled like aluminum foil. Foam mats slashed open, stuffing spilling like guts. My salvaged table reduced to kindling. And the braces, God, the braces, twisted metal and cut leather straps, destroyed with methodical precision. Someone had taken their time. Had enjoyed it. I knelt in the wreckage, picking up pieces, and the sound that escaped me was animal, raw and broken and drowning in grief. These weren't just braces. They were months of saved money, sacrificed meals, hope measured in leather and steel. They were Lily's chance. Then I saw the message carved into concrete with something sharp, letters deep and deliberate, debts don't die with fathers. Ice flooded my veins. After 3 years of hiding, of running, of pretending we didn't exist, they'd found us. A sound stopped me. Soft whimpering from the corner where shadows pooled thick. A woman stumbled into light, young, early 20s, face bruised and bloody, clutching her ribs. "Run," she gasped. "They're coming back." "Wanted you to see," she collapsed. I caught her, lowering us both to the ground. Too much blood. Too much. Her eyes were already glazing. "Who did this?" I demanded, though I already knew. "Carlisle," she choked out. "Said to tell you debts don't die with fathers. Said you chose the wrong side." Her grip on my wrist went slack. "No, no, stay with me," but she was gone. And I was kneeling in her blood with a message carved in stone and the certainty that Lily was next. I scrambled for my phone, fingers slipping, leaving red smears as I dialed Daniel. He answered on the first ring. "Ava. They found us." The words tumbled out, fractured. "The warehouse, they destroyed everything. There's a woman, she's dead," they said, my voice broke. "Daniel, Lily's at home alone." "What if I already have men at your apartment." "She's safe." "You can't know that, she's safe," he repeated, his voice steel. "Are you hurt?" "No, but, stay there. Don't move. I'm 4 minutes out." The line went dead. I sat in ruins, cradling a dead stranger, and waited for the monster I'd started to trust. Chapter 5, When Monsters Become Saviors. He arrived in 3 minutes. The warehouse door didn't open, it exploded inward, kicked with such force the hinges shattered. Daniel strode through wreckage flanked by 2 men in dark suits, and the expression on his face was apocalyptic. His eyes found me first, did rapid assessment for injuries. Then they landed on the dead woman, the destroyed braces, the carved message. Something in him went absolutely still, the kind of stillness that precedes earthquakes. "Get her up," he ordered one of his men. Carefully. Hands helped me stand, gentle but firm. Someone draped a jacket over my shoulders. But I couldn't stop staring at Daniel, at the way fury transformed him into something barely human. He crouched beside the carved message, fingers tracing letters like he was memorizing them for a reckoning. When he stood, his voice was perfectly, terribly calm. "Carlisle did this." I nodded. "He threatened Lily." Another nod. Daniel pulled out his phone, pressed a single number. When someone answered, he said 3 words, "Burn it down." "Daniel," I started, but he cut me off with a look. "They came into my city. Threatened what's under my protection. Killed a civilian to send a message." His jaw worked. "That requires an answer." "What kind of answer?" He turned to me fully, and the man I saw wasn't the one who'd gently watched Lily practice. This was the Mafia boss, the killer, the legend. The kind written in blood and bodies. The kind that makes people remember why my name is whispered like a curse. The kind that ensures no one ever touches you or your sister again. "They'll come after you." "Good." His smile was a razor. "Let them come. Let Carlisle send every man he has. I want them to know exactly who they're dealing with." "Why?" The question burst out. "Why do this? Why risk a war over us?" Daniel's hand cupped my face, thumb brushing away blood I hadn't realized was there. His eyes held mine, dark, infinite, burning. "Because I'm done losing people I could have saved. Because your sister deserves to walk. Because he stopped, jaw tightening, because you're mine to protect now. And I don't fail twice." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. "Lily's secure at my estate. You're going there now. You're not leaving until this is finished." It wasn't a request. "And you?" I whispered. His smile turned predatory. "I'm going hunting."